Welcome to Victoria Rumble Room. I'm Robin Adair. With me, as always, my co-host with the most, John Juricic. And Johnny, we have a very short federal election race in Canada. It's going to be all over on Monday, April 28th. And it looks to me like, the big hook on this election is leadership and also this big angry guy across the border.
I wish I could talk more and at some length and be more articulate about this. There's only one issue, and that is how a potential prime minister would handle Donald Trump. It's that simple. Who is the best qualified? Who is going to be perceived as the best qualified? That means the toughest, the most responsible, the most cohesive. It's all about him. Does that annoy me? So much. That we're being defined by this man that is unstable. However, that's how it's going to be. And until some sort of gaffe happens, that's what it's all about.
Well, I'm kind of waiting for a gaffe, Sean. I think it's going to be a very, very tight race. In a few minutes, we'll take a look at one of the most recent polls that show how neck and neck it is. But I think somebody's bound to take a misstep. And we've already seen a bit of stumbling going on, but nothing big. But something could happen, and it's a very short lead-up time to the election. We'll have to see. In the meantime, looking across at all of this with great interest, as he is the one who's generated this trade war, is Donald Trump, and he is definitely public enemy number one in Canada, and here's why.
You have that artificial line that goes, that straight artificial, that looked like it was drawn by a ruler, somebody with I don't mean a ruler like a king, I mean like a ruler, this way. And it's just an artificial line that was drawn in the sand or in the ice. And and can I tell you, Peter, just, you add that to this country, what a beautiful landmass, the most beautiful landmass anywhere in the world. And it was just cut off for whatever reason. It would be great. Now, is it liberal? Maybe. But, a conservative until I got involved, because I don't care who wins up there. I frankly probably would do better with the liberal than the conservative, if you want to know the truth. But just a little while ago, before I got involved and totally changed the election, which I don't care about, probably it's our advantage, actually. But the conservative was leading against, I call him Governor Trudeau. And remember, with Canada, we don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything from Canada. And yet it costs us $200 billion a year in subsidy to keep Canada afloat. So when I say they should be a state, I mean that. I really mean that. Because we can't be expected to carry a country that is right next to us on our border. It would be a great state. It would be a cherished state.
A lot of our viewers have expressed dislike for me in stating that I dislike Trump. In fact, I hate Trump. I'll tell you, for those folks who get annoyed with when I say that word, I really don't know the man. I don't know the man. I know what he stands for, and I know what he does. And historically, I can see what he's done. For all of those reasons, I don't like him. On top of the fact that emotionally he's a bully and a misogynist and a criminal. And what really annoys me, as I've just stated, are the effect that he's having on our election. And that cuts right across party lines, okay? First, Trump says he favors the Liberals because the Conservatives have said bad things about him. But of course, the Liberals are trying to paint Pierre Poilievre as a Canadian version of Trump, which I don't agree with. Then Danielle Smith jumps into the fray.
That's right, John, the Premier of Alberta. She couldn't hold off on this. She's come out in an interview she did with a podcast in the United States that she's already spoken to U.S. officials that they should hold off. They should hold off on these tariffs until after we've had our election in Canada, until we've had a chance to have Pierre Poilievre win. I guess that's what she's really hoping for, is a conservative win. She's a conservative. She wants to see Pierre Poilievre get a fair fighting chance. And here's what Smith actually had to say about Mark Carney.
But that shouldn't surprise any of us, given that the new Prime Minister is a whole new level of climate zealot and eco-extremist. From his decades-long push for net zero banking that sought to make it impossible for banks to invest in oil and gas, to his promise now to massively increase carbon taxes on our industry, make no mistake, He wants to eviscerate our oil and gas industry. It's right in his book. In Canada, our national identity, unity, our freedom, and our future are at a monumental crossroads.
I am not so startled about what Danielle Smith said. She is a conservative. She came from, if I remember correctly, a very conservative right-wing party in Alberta and eventually formed government. This is not a shocker to me that she would want a conservative in Ottawa. I mean, why is this so startling to us? We're all adults in the room. We can make our decisions. We can determine black from red or red and blue, whatever. So do we think Pierre Poilievre will lay down for Trump? I don't think he will, and do a deal that gives America a trade win? I don't think he will. But you know, he does have to define that more clearly than he has so far. Already he's been asked if he likes Donald Trump.
I respect the office of the President of the United States, and we have to show respect to other world leaders. The bottom line is the Americans buy 75% of our goods. So whoever's the prime minister is going to have to, at some point, deal with President Trump. He was only elected a short time ago. He's going to be around for 4 more years. You can be respectful and firm, and I believe we have to be both. I will insist the president recognize the independence and sovereignty of Canada. I will insist that he stop tariffing our nation. And at the same time, I will strengthen our country so that we can be capable of standing on our own 2 feet and standing up to the Americans where and when necessary.
As for Mark Carney, he is certainly in the fight. He's pulled the Liberals well into this race, and there are a lot of rumblings that he may take them over the finish line. We'll have to wait and see. He continues to wrap himself firmly in a Canadian flag, depicts the Liberals as Team Canada. It makes it sound like you're almost unpatriotic not to vote for them. And he also has talked about how he would see himself dealing with Trump in the future.
We are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's unjustified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty. Our response must be to build a strong economy and a more secure Canada. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
So as we work through this first week of the campaign, how does the polling look? And, you know, fascinatingly, Liberal surge has not been fully because of a Liberal surge. There's been another party that's collapsed. So what if they come back up? What if the NDP come back up? According to the polling, Liberals are back in the game. I'm not so sure. It's a tight race. I get it's a tight race. But on any given day in this next 5 weeks, that could change.
Well, John, it is really tight. Doesn't matter which poll you look at. All of them show that the 2 leading parties, the Conservatives and the Liberals, neck and neck. A few months ago, the Conservatives had this in a slam. Then, of course, Justin Trudeau leaves, Carney comes in, and it's a whole different ballgame. And if you look at this poll now that comes from Abacus, the Conservatives hold a slight lead with 39% of decided voters, followed by the Liberals at 36%, the NDP way back at 12%, the Bloc at 6%, the Greens at 4%.
NDP are fragile. Plus, they're terrible marketers. There's a pretty popular dental care program that has been in place through this Liberal NDP coalition. That was because of the NDP. And Trudeau and the Libs have taken all the credit for it. Terrible marketers, they're fragile. Supporting Justin Trudeau and keeping his minority government in power makes it difficult for them now to campaign against the Liberals. The NDP used to own Vancouver Island, but this has now shifted outside of Victoria, Greater Victoria. The Conservatives lead in every riding, according to polling this week. If Jagmeet Singh loses his seat, his base of support in BC, you've got to think he's done. I'm certain of that. There's no question many younger blue-collar voters have shifted to the Conservatives, while center-left urbanites are backing the Liberals.
So let's roll up our sleeves and dig in deeper on this with a man who's just back from a sabbatical in Albania, of all places. UVic climate expert and former leader of the BC Green Party, a regular contributor on the Victoria Rumble Room, and no friend of Pierre Poilievre's. It's Andrew Weaver. Let's zoom him in. And so, without further ado, joining us in the Rumble Room is Dr. Andrew Weaver.
Yeah.
And boy, we've got a federal election that's already heating up. We've only been into it for about a week. And we have Mark Carney on display. It seems from all the pundits and people that are talking about this election that leadership has become the number one issue. Leadership for the country, leadership in dealing with Donald Trump. How would you appraise Mark Carney as a leader?
Well, actually, I logged in and signed up to be able to vote for him as the leader of the Liberal Party. So I think he's exactly what Canada needs. I door knocked for the federal Liberals in the riding of Victoria back in the fall. And I heard it time and time again on the doorstep, people saying, I just can't bring myself to vote Liberal with Trudeau as the Prime Minister. And then you try to probe why, and it really is a personality thing, right? But his name, Mark Carney, kept on being mentioned. So, finally, we have an adult in the room in Ottawa. And so in terms of leadership, I think he's exactly what we need.
All right, come on. That's far too calm for me. Always great to have a man on the show who never holds back. You've expressed, great admiration for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. Andrew, tell us what your opinion is of the opposition leader these days.
Well, I mean, I didn't sign up to join the Conservative Party to vote for Mr. Poilievre. No, frankly, I just really dislike him because it strikes me that he has one mode of operation, and it's rage farming. His whole shtick is this: find something that's making Canadians feel a bit angry about it, poke him, rage him up, get him really angry, then come up with a verb the noun 3-word slogan, and then run on that. I mean, I don't know what he stands for apart from I know everything he's against. It seems like everything. But there's no policy. And so, we don't need that. You can see what that sort of rhetoric gets you. Just look south of the border. We have, I would argue, Mr. Poilievre is like Trump light here in Canada with the same kind of nonsensical rhetoric, the 3-word slogans and rage farming. So no, I'm not a fan of Mr. Poilievre.
You sound like Gerald Butts and yourself got together and wrote that out. I mean, no policy. He's got lots of policy. He's talking about bringing back pipelines, taking the cap off of that. He's talking about a 15% tax cut across the board to Canadians. Those are policy issues. You can't say there's no policy on the table. You just might not like it.
He's had many years to actually say what he stands for and what he wants. And all I've heard for all those years is what he doesn't want and what he doesn't like. And, if we listened to him, we'd all have been investing in cryptocurrency at the peak of the market. I don't like the fact that he's talking about dismantling the CBC and essentially stopping public funding for that. It's, one of our beacons of our democracy here in Canada. So this is all negative stuff. I want to know positive stuff. What's the hope you offer? And he doesn't, because his only shtick to this date was, I am not Justin Trudeau. Find issue, blame Trudeau, rage farm, 3-word slogan. Yeah, no, sorry.
That was kind of working, though, wasn't it, Andrew? If Trudeau was still sitting in that seat with the Liberals, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. It would just be how big would the Conservative victory be. So you have to admit that Carney has come at the right time for that party to at least try to turn the tables.
Right person, right time, right party, and finally, we have somebody we have an adult there. I mean, who do you want to run the country? A former Bank of Canada chief, Bank of England chief, or some career politician who, as far as I can tell, has never had a job outside of being in politics? I can tell you who I would want running our economy, not some, guy who nobody even knew existed at the back of the class in high school, who's suddenly having revenge on all of society. It's kind of extreme,
Right.
or somebody who's built a career on governance.
All right, Andrew,
there's no choice.
So here I started my questioning with that you're not holding back, and you, baby, you let us have it right between.
Oh,
Okay,
well, I mean,
I cannot.
Poor little Mark Carney and all his high school friends. You're just being so mean.
No, it was Pierre Poilievre's high school friends.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
Although they probably could have been in the same high school. They both grew up in Alberta.
We cannot have a Nobel Prize winner in climate change and climatology without beginning our policy questions around climate change, okay? Or at least related to climate change. So conservatives talking about removing the carbon tax, removing the cap on oil and gas development, and fast-tracking pipelines. Mark Carney is saying remove the tax, sounding a bit like a conservative. Is this all zero emissions setback, or is this a diversion? What's really happening here?
So that's actually a great question. Thanks, John. Robin, John is the hostess with the mostest. You know that. I mean,
thank you.
The Croatian sensation. It's anyway. No, no. Seriously. Mark Carney has been very well aware of the risks of climate change throughout his tenure as a Bank of Canada and Bank of England chief. So I know that this man is not somebody who needed to come and run for prime minister. He is not a career politician. He's exactly the type of man who understands these issues and is coming to politics out of a sense of a calling, a sense of duty. Because, again, this is... for me, when I look at Poilievre, all I think is the guy who spent his entire life at the public purse in office. I don't see anything of substance there, but I see that with Mark Carney. So in terms of the carbon tax, I've always called it the carbon levy. The Conservatives are shameful in their behavior. It became a toxic word. The people in Alberta are going to realize when they stop getting their checks that they were actually getting more money back in their pockets than they were paying in carbon tax. It was policy that was working. Unfortunately, there were some jurisdictions like BC which started to turn it into general revenues. And so when Mr. Eby is putting in notice that he's going to axe the carbon tax here if the feds remove their backstop, this is really problematic for BC because that's general revenue stuff, not like the federal plan, which was, if you don't have one in the province, you're getting the money back through a dividend. So the entire discussion was framed in cynical nonsense. Frankly, the Conservative Party under Pierre Poilievre are literally climate deniers. Let's be clear and call it what it is. There is no reasoning with them on this file. They have no plan on this file. They have nothing, and that is an abdication of a responsibility. So Mr. Carney, I trust. He's doing the best he can with the situation that was laid out for him. I thought the federal Liberals under Trudeau did not do a good job selling some of their climate policy. That lands directly on their comms people in Ottawa. But I have no problem knowing that Mr. Carney will do the right thing in this file.
As you're not running as a candidate, I can well imagine if Mr. Carney wins, I could see who the next ambassador to Albania would be from Canada. Getting an appointment like that and have a nice car.
I would love to be the ambassador to Albania. That would be I just spent 3 months there.
It'd be great to know that's where you heard it first, was on this show.
Rumble. What do we do with Weaver? What do we do with Weaver?
The Rumble Room is doing you all kinds of favors, Andrew. Trying our very best to sort of help.
But you got a shirt from Montenegro. You're getting close to my heart, my friend.
Absolutely.
Yes, you are.
Absolutely.
I was within a stone throw of Dubrovnik.
I was
fabulous. Kotor, the Bay of Kotor.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. Yeah.
Isn't it though? Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
there
a
we
whole
go.
bunch of people there look just
ambassador.
like John. We can get into that later. I wanted to talk about the fact that the personality and the issue weighing across this entire discussion, as much fun as it is putting the dukes up for Mr. Poilievre or saying anything unkind about Mr. Carney, is what's across the border, the man with the yellow hair that's causing us all this problem. And, you know, it seems to me that if Justin Trudeau and his crew, and that crew is still there, they're all still the same cabinet behind Mr. Carney, had done a better job of getting Canada more diversified and better prepared, perhaps we wouldn't be as vulnerable right now in the face of what Donald Trump is doing. What do you make of Donald Trump, and what do you make of Canada's chances of getting some sort of a reasonable clarification and ending to this crisis? It seems that we're in a very tough spot. How are we going to get ourselves out of this?
Well, first off, Donald Trump doesn't understand simple economics. He's not hurting Canada right now. He's hurting his own people. When he puts tariffs on stuff coming from Canada, and we know that much of that stuff is bought by Americans, he's actually taxing Americans. He's not taxing Canadians. Canada is in a very good place. We have the fastest growing economy in the G7. So I dispute what you said there, that we would have been in a better place. We're in a great place. The people who are not in a good place are the poor people in the U.S. who voted for something against their own interests.
But even Mr. Carney is saying he's going to open up pipelines. He's going to get more production between different provinces. He's going to take off the interprovincial tariffs. Why wasn't this done over the last 10 years?
This should have been done 50 years ago. It goes back to decades upon decades of, I just have someone else calling in. I'll just tell them to
it's Pierre.
No, it's somebody in Vancouver. So Pierre,
what are you saying these bad things about me for? What's going on? What did I ever do to you?
Honestly, it's the Rumble Room. Nobody takes them seriously.
I'm changing my motto to Axe the Weaver. That's what's going to happen.
Axe the Weaver. That's great.
No, so coming back to the interprovincial trade barriers, I mean, we've been our own worst enemies. This is not going to be blamed on Trudeau. It's blamed on Harper, Chrétien. It goes back forever. And I'm really glad that this has been a catalyst. This, the man whose name shall not be mentioned, has been a catalyst for us to actually move in this direction. I think you'll find that, discussing, I think there was a talk about a pipeline going east. Obviously, the people of Quebec will have to be involved in those discussions. But removing interprovincial trade barriers, let's do it. I mean, we should have done this ages ago.
All right. I'm going to get into some tactics, strategies, parties, philosophies that you're familiar with in your past. So to some degree, it can be the Liberals' rise in popularity over the last 2 to 3 months is attributed to a collapse in the NDP vote. And we don't know where that NDP vote is going to be in this election. Maybe it resurrects. Anyway, so the question is, do they have a message that people will listen to? And then, of course, I can't go in a show without asking you about Elizabeth May and the Greens. So the support for these two parties, where do you think it's going to land at the election day in end of April?
Well, I think Canadians will, across the country, see that we have a stark choice. The choice is, who will be the next prime minister? Will it be Mark Carney or will it be Pierre Poilievre? I mean, if I were an NDP voter, and obviously I've voted for every political party before. I voted for Denise Savoy when I lived in that riding, and David Anderson, and so Elizabeth May. I've voted all over the place. But if I would be looking at who do I think will be the best person to stand up for us now in a critical time in our history. I just don't see that with Jagmeet Singh. I do not see that with Pierre Poilievre. No way with the Greens. So there really is only one choice. So I think we're going to see, I wouldn't be surprised to see Victoria go Liberal. I wouldn't be surprised to see Esquimalt Souk Saanich or go Liberal. I wouldn't be surprised to see a really tight three-way race between the Liberal Conservative and Elizabeth May. Elizabeth's numbers have been dropping election after election. And I think she's vulnerable but I just don't know how that will play out. She does have a loyal following. If they stay with the Greens or do they move to the Liberals, that's the question.
All right, so I want to get a prediction out of you. I mean, we may get you on again before we get to the end of this election cycle, but at this point, we have polls that show it's neck and neck. And what I'm hearing and seeing on a lot of the chat shows and broadcasts is suggestion that this is going to be decided by perhaps somebody making a major slip, that we have these two big forces driving across the country with their messages. Carney is getting good crowds. Poilievre, despite the fact that maybe Andrew Weaver doesn't like him, is getting huge crowds out as well.
I've actually never met him, so it's nothing personal, Mr. Poilievre.
Well, it didn't seem personal at all. It seemed like it was just giggles and laughs. But anyway, the thing is that it seems to me, and it seems to a lot of these pundits, it's going to be a misstep. It's going to be a Hindenburg moment, where the Hindenburg went happily across the Atlantic about 30 times, and then suddenly, magically, it didn't. It crashed, and that's what everybody remembers, and that's why it's on a Led Zeppelin album. So, do you think that we could see somebody, a gaffe of some type? We've seen it provincially. We've seen it at other times in other parts of the country. We've seen it in national races. Would you see a gaffe, and could a gaffe actually be created because maybe something that Donald Trump says or does during the campaign?
It's interesting. I actually think my prediction is we will get a Liberal majority government. Isn't that a shocker? But
that was my prediction too, which Rowan
Was it?
completely disagreed with. Yes, sir.
I don't see it, but
this is why I told you John is the host with the mostest.
Okay, you're saying a liberal majority government?
Yeah.
Are you thinking there's a possibility of a big misstep? Could that make a difference, pro or con? And could Donald Trump, do you think, get in there and try to interfere with this election?
He already has. He came out initially saying, I would like to work with a conservative government, which totally backfired. And then recently he said he'd rather work with a Liberal government. He thinks Canadians are stupid. No, Donald Trump, we want someone strong. And we will be the determiners of who that one is. We're not going to listen to some, lunatic in the South who, there's a lot of Americans who are more afraid about him than we are. Like he is out of control, and we'll find our own destiny through our own vote. And I don't think there will be a Trumpian. I use his name. I don't like to use it. A gaffe institute initiated by someone whose name shall not be mentioned in the South. Yes. I think we can count on Elizabeth May having a good couple of gaffes. That's a regular for every election campaign. I think we can probably find that there'll be a couple of conservative candidates representing some riding that we've never heard of who will suddenly drop out, because that's kind of par for the course. Probably find the same thing in the Liberals and NDP. I don't know, but I don't think it's the ballot box question right now is so clear that I think it's pretty hard to overturn what people are looking for. Who is going to lead us and stand up to Mr. Name not to be mentioned?
As always, Andrew Weaver, loaded for bear in the Rumble Room, and we appreciate that. And, many of our right-wing friends say, why do you have that guy on the show so often? Well, he's outspoken, he's colorful, and that is what makes the Rumble Room what it is, and we appreciate it very much. It makes it rumble. That's the rumble. Andrew Weaver's a rumbler, and we'll certainly have him back again soon. But Johnny, before we go, perhaps a word about Victoria City Hall and a certain councillor.
You're being very kind. A word, more like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Councillor Jeremy Cardona from Victoria City Council, who led the charge recently to get a fat pay raise and failed, has decided to double down with another misjudgment. On Blue Sky, Twitter's companion platform, he called for Mark Carney to confiscate Make America Great Again hats and labels. He also asked Carney to name the MAGA movement as an extremist organization. And on top of that, because of Elon Musk, Jeremy wants the X platform scrubbed because it hosts hostile propaganda. Please, Jeremy, Get your head on straight. How do you think this is going to happen? In the midst of a collapsing economy, collapsing relationships, world orders collapsing, we want to keep people with jobs. We want to keep some stability. We want to have some kind of tax load remain stable. What are you going to do when they come in? Americans come in off the boats. Have a little crew of policemen there, checking whether people are wearing red hats. Oh, come on. This is crazy. Can you please stick to sidewalks and land use policy?
Well, I guess he has ambitions well beyond being a city councilor, but I don't know that he ever gets
where?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a misjudgment. I mean, sure, you could put a notice up on the boat saying we suggest, for the sensibilities of locals, you may not want to wear one of these MAGA hats. That would be common sense.
Are we all children?
But,
come on.
Terrorist organization, a terrorist organization.
Oh, please.
I don't know. Anyway, I think it's bad judgment, and City Hall has better things to deal with. And,
absolutely.
like
bet.
fixing Blanchard Street. That'd be great. Anyway,
Yes.
on that happy note, John, it's time to wrap the Rumble Room. Perhaps you could again tell our wonderful viewers how they can follow the show on various platforms.
You bet I will. We are on X, sometimes reluctantly, but anyway, we are. We're on Facebook and we're on YouTube. Okay. All of our interviews and all of our clips are somewhere on those platforms. We also have a podcast version of what we're saying every week. And we also are on TikTok and Instagram. You got to come visit us on TikTok. It's kind of a crazy platform. Lots of comments everywhere. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to Kelly Darwin and West Shore Web Hosting for hosting our website, which contains all of the information that I just splurged all over you guys. Once again, without a doubt, without any hesitation, I remain 100% Canadian patriot. My name is John Juricic.
I'm Robin Adair, and I want a shout out to David Schneider, who's been a big supporter on our show and has sent a lot of great and useful information, especially since the writ was dropped and this federal election got underway. David Schneider certainly does great work in this community and is much appreciated in the Rumble Room. On that happy note, we encourage you to rumble on.